Okay, so hello and welcome to AE Learners IELTS Trial Plus 1. And today we're going to look at some writing challenges, which is going to be on writing task 1. And of course, before that, we'll quickly look at your study routine that you could use. Also, some synonym games, okay? So yeah, to warm up the session, let's start with synonym games. Let me share the screen first. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. All right, so hopefully you can see the screen now. Okay, so first things first, today we'll play some synonym games in the beginning. So here it is, some similar meanings game two. Here you will be given a list of words. You can see there are two lists, one on the left and one on the right. So you have to pick the word that matches the words on your left. So basically, the words on your right are draggable. You can drag them and put them in the blanks here, in one of the blanks here. So you need to find the matching word for the word smart and all the words on the right. You need to match these words with the words on the left. Whichever matches to the closest will be the correct answer. Okay, so it's pretty simple. As we can see, the first word is sad. Can you find the similar meaning to sad from the words of mentioned on your right? Yes, we can see unhappy. Unhappy exactly means sad. So it's the right answer. Okay, can you find another similar meaning for clever that's given on your right? Well, I can see a similar meaning to clever should be smart. Can you find a similar meaning to broad from your right? I can see wide. Can you find a similar meaning to rich? Is it incorrect? No. Is it hard? No. Then it should be wealthy, right? So you can also apply your elimination trick if you're confused with your vocabulary. Remember that IELTS often puts forward some words or vocabulary that we might not understand because it's not possible to memorize all the vocabularies, right? But if you know the very common ones, the frequently used ones, you're good to go. Okay, and I'll give you a green signal to that. But if you're not familiar with the most frequently words or the popular common words, then I'm sorry to say you are not ready for the IELTS test. So yeah, there are some frequently used words, some IELTS vocabulary lists that you'll find on Google. If you're familiar with them, you're good to go. You'll get the green signal. Good news for you. Okay, so over here, these are some very simple synonyms that you should be familiar with. And if you're not familiar with them, if you don't know them well, or if you're finding the wrong answer, then it's time you start working on your vocabulary. Okay, so let's find a similar meaning to difficult. It should be hard, right? Hard means difficult. Can you find similar meaning to wrong? Of course, there's only one word left and it's definitely incorrect. Wrong means incorrect, erroneous. So now let's check the score. Oh, it's 100%. That means we got all of them correct. Good news, we got the green signal. Okay, so yeah, we're good to go. Just like this, you can go to the next game and keep on playing as much as possible. All right, and here is your IELTS study routine. It's a very good routine for those who are extremely confused with how to start studying. So it depends on your routine, your daily routine, okay? And according to that routine, you have to fit in your study routine inside your daily routine so that you can achieve the best outcome. Well, it is highly recommended that you practice listening, reading, writing, speaking every single day. But let's say you are struggling to learn everything at once. There are students who cannot learn everything at once because they forget everything or they're super tense, super worried. don't know how to move along with the routine. So sometimes learning everything becomes too challenging for some students. So for those students, I've come up with a better routine, which will allow you to have a IELTS therapy. So in this IELTS therapy, you will be able to learn everything slowly but effectively. That will not become too challenging for you. That will not be too hard or harsh on you or your brain. You can stay relaxed and still keep on learning every day. But remember, consistency is the key. So if you're not consistent, then it's a no for you. So remember, if you practice every day, practice something every day, you will reach your destination. You will get your desired goal. You will get your desired score. But remember, you have to study every day. Set yourself on this, maybe not on the study table all the time. Sometimes you can sit on the sofa, on your bed, or just stand and study as well. Maybe stand in front of the mirror and talk to yourself, do some self-counseling, do some speaking tests. You can study in different ways. Sometimes you can change your roles, become your own teacher, and you know talk like a teacher to yourself when you're studying, so that you don't feel like studying, you feel like teaching. Okay, so this way you can actually make your studies more interesting. Maybe you don't like to read anything, then you can just change your role. Instead of thinking yourself as an examining, think of yourself as a TV news presenter, maybe, so that when you're reading something, you read like a news presenter and act like one, so that you feel that, oh, okay, I'm not actually studying for my exam, I'm actually presenting a news report. Okay, so play different roles that makes you excited, that makes you feel excited about learning, and not anything boring or challenging or too um, unwelcoming maybe. So yeah, I would highly suggest that you change your routine in such a way that makes your life interesting, helps you get excited to wake up from the bed with the intention to do something more challenging, learn something new, and always stay hungry to learn something new. That way, you will always stay curious and you will absorb much better than any other student. That will definitely be the key to your success in your house exam and in any other exam that you will face in your future life. Okay, so this is just a suggestion. This is not something you have to follow. You can make your own routine. But here, this routine is for someone who is scared of learning everything at once or cannot learn everything at once. Okay, so here we have put reading practice and learning session for the entire first week. Let me zoom in the screen so that you can see it clearly. Okay, I hope it's visible now. So you can see here, uh, the reading test is from Sunday to Saturday for the entire week. And start with a small passage, the easiest passage that you're most comfortable with. Okay, that should be your go-to story, your go-to success. Maybe before reading, you can watch a YouTube video on reading tips, and then you can go on to start reading passage one from any kind of online IELTS website. There is IELTS Advantage, British Council, IELTS List, there are IELTS app, IELTS Up. There are different kind of IELTS apps as well, applications. You can download one IELTS application and start practicing with your application as well as your website. And of course, if you have a book that you have bought, that's definitely a good suggestion. Okay, so maybe on the first day, you just watched a YouTube video on reading tips, and then you started reading passage one. Okay, and you finished it. You marked some important words that you found new. you're not familiar with, and then you mark them, write them down in your notebook, write down their meanings, and try making some sentences with them. Try finding some sentences with those words on Google, maybe. Okay, and once you have found those really interesting kind of background on the new vocabulary, your mind will be happy. Oh, finally, I found something new. And finally, reading will start looking a bit more interesting, maybe, yeah? And from reading, you'll get to know so many different stories of so many different countries, people, backgrounds, or maybe facts you didn't know ever. I also have so many interesting passages, trust me. It is so different from the other passages that you have learned in your life, because these passages will make you stand out once you have learned to answer those questions. This is not only just to pass your IELTS, but remember, this is also to pass your future academic tests abroad, or maybe your work life tests abroad. Okay, so that's why they have been designed very cautiously, keeping your next goals in mind. All right, so once you're done with passage one and the first day, you have written down those new vocabularies, maybe some sentence structures that you could use in your writing task. You found them intimidating, write them down and learn to, find out some grammar rules for the sentences you're not comfortable with. Maybe some tenses, check on your tenses, check on your grammar test, give a grammar test online and see if it's going good. If you're not passing them, then learn some grammar rules right from the beginning, and it's a good way to start your IELTS preparation. Okay, so focus on your grammar, vocabulary, and reading skills in the beginning. That will help you to really, strengthen your IELTS skills. And once you're, done with the first week like this, every day, each one passage a day should be good to go. It should not be too much for you. And taking it lightly and easily will take you to the next week. Okay, so once you have concurred the first week, well done. You can give yourself a green signal because the entire week you have studied without any gap. Okay, and of course, take a study break after studying. Give yourself some break, maybe after every 30 minutes. In the beginning, if you're not used to studying that much, you can give yourself a study break for a few minutes. Take some air, take a walk, drink some water, grab a candy or a coffee. Do something interesting that you love or enjoy. But remember, keep your phone on silent. Keep all other electronic devices on silent. Stay away from distractions so that no one can come between you and your goal. Yeah? Okay. Underline the relevant information, underline the hard words and write their meaning, read the questions again, then read the passage once you have understood the questions, read the passage, mark the paragraphs. Remember, there are different kinds of questions in your IELTS exam passages for the reading section, right? There is true, false, not given kind of question. There is marking the paragraph with the right heading kind of question. There is fill in the blanks question, or sometimes they will give you MCQs as well. Okay, so remember, for choosing the right heading for each paragraph is very easy. After reading every paragraph, you can just quickly find the heading instantly. That will quicken up your reading test time. Okay, that will save you a lot of reading test time. So to know further reading tips, follow our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook page. And don't forget to uh, quickly pop up in all of our trial classes so that you can learn even further about reading tips and all other skill tests. Okay, so yeah, this way for the first 2 weeks, you can just do reading. And once you're comfortable with reading, try to allocate further skill tests into your study routine so that you learn them as well. Because remember, you have to pass all the skill tests, right? So once you're done with reading, once you're comfortable with this section, you can move on to writing. Okay, then once in writing, what you can do is, of course, on the first day, start with looking at a good YouTube video on writing tips and read a sample answer, not just one, maybe two, three, four, five, as many as possible. After looking at the sample answers, highlight the key points, try to understand how they have written every single para, how the entire writing task is structured. Okay, and writing task one is very simple, it's summary, but it's technical as well because they want you to follow a very specific format that you need to stick to. If you don't follow that format, then you will not actually pass the exam. So today we are going to talk about writing task one, how to pass your writing task one. Remember, to pass your writing task one, you need to be familiar with the format, and I'll quickly share the format with you. So let me write down the format of writing task one. Okay. So in the beginning, you have to, the first para, in the first para, you have to very simply just paraphrase your question or criteria. Okay, in the second para, you're going to show the overview of the entire graph or image, map, whatever they give you. In the following paras, in every other para, you're going to explain the sentences with examples. Okay, explain the sentences mentioned in the overview with examples. And remember, there is no conclusion in writing task one. If you write it, it will be wrong. You might lose marks because examiner will be disappointed knowing that you did not learn the format well. That means you did not practice the writing test. So of course, examiners want to be assured that you have practiced your IELTS section test every single possible way to be prepared for the exam. So that is why it's very important that you practice them in a proper manner from a proper tutor, with a proper tutor, and very importantly, your time management skills. So to cope up with the time, you need to practice. There is no substitute to practice. So of course, everyone will recommend you the same thing, and I believe you can do it because it is not impossible. It's not rocket science. It's something a lot of students, millions of students have passed IELTS exams, and so can you. Okay, so it's not rocket science. It's not impossible. Remember that and remind yourself of this every single day. All right, so here we have the format of writing task one, very simple. So let's look at a small example. Here is a chart that shows expenditure of two countries on consumer goods in 2010. All right, so of course, we can see that these consumer goods expenditures are some, from the UK and from France. So these goods are very much likely to be spent on. These goods are cars, computers, books, perfume, and cameras. Okay, so the first things first, you need to write down your introduction, which is paraphrasing your question. What's your question? You need to find that out. Okay, so the question is, of course, you have to summarize uh, the information given on the chart, okay, or prepare a report given on the chart. Either way, your answer will look like this. Okay, it's given in only 4 small paragraphs, and you have to write within 150 to 170 words. No more than 170 words and no less than 150 words. Remember that. Okay, so of course, when you look at the question, you'll know what to write. So you can just write the chart illustrates the amount of money spent on 5 consumer goods. And in bracket, you can mention the goods in France and the UK in 2010. Units are measured in pounds sterling. Okay, as you can see in the graph, in bracket, they have mentioned pound sterling. If they do not mention anything, you don't have to mention anything either. Okay. All right. So this is the first introduction. The first paragraph is always the introduction, which is paraphrasing the question. And the question will always be given in your exam. Don't worry about that. Paraphrasing basically means restructuring the sentence in your own words, but keeping the same meaning. Be careful, do not change the meaning. So learn to paraphrase right from day one. Okay, so second para is the overview of the entire chart or the graph that will be presented to you in your examination. It can be a map, it can be an image, it can be a comparison of several images to different image, scatter diagram, line graph, bar chart, pie chart, it can be anything. So be careful. You need to understand how each graph varies from each other and how you need to present them to your examiner. That is very important. So overview is actually an overall picture of the graph in written words. That means your examiner should be able to visualize the graph or the image in front of their eyes without looking at the picture or the graph. Okay, so in order to let them visualize, you need to give them a proper overview. Overall, what is happening? Give them a proper overview. And if you look at this chart very carefully, you will see that the UK consumer goods uh, consumption is higher, mostly higher than the French consumption on goods, because you can see 3 out of 5 in the UK. We can give 3 out of 5 in the UK. If we were to score this consumption, then I would give 3 out of 5 to the UK and 2 out of 5 to France, because we can see that on 3 items, cars, books, and cameras, UK spent more than France, whereas France spent less than the UK on 3 of those items. Only on 2 of the items, we can see on perfume and on computers, France spent more. Okay, so of course, it's very obvious that UK gets the highest score, which is why we can say overall the UK spent more money on consumer goods than France in the period given. Okay, don't forget to mention the period. It's only for 2010, but in other cases, it might be more than 1 year. So you need to look at it, study it very carefully before you write it down. Okay, brainstorm, put some points in your mind before writing it down. And if you give the CB, it's totally fine. You can just delete the sentences you don't want to write and then rewrite. So yeah, it just makes your work so much easier. Okay, so next line, after just putting that overview in one sentence of what's happening overall, we have mentioned it in the first line of the overview para. Later on, tell them biggest similarity and the biggest difference, okay, to explain the overall scenario. Both the British and the French spent most of their money on cars, whereas the least amount of money was spent on perfume in the UK compared to cameras in France. Furthermore, the most significant difference in expenditure between the two countries was on cameras. Right, so the biggest difference was seen in cameras consumption. So we can see from the graph what's happening. It's pretty obvious. And in the next para, they explained it further how they're similar, how they're um, different with numerical figures. Okay, you need to give examples to back up your statement, to show evidences. So to show evidences, they mentioned further in terms of cost, people in the UK spent about 4,50,000. So in the first para, the second para of the overview para, they mentioned that British and French, both of them spent most of their money on cars. So now in the next para, you can explain how much they spent it and how is it that they spent most on them. You need to give them examples, right? So in the next para, you can say, in terms of cost, people in the UK spent about £450,000 on this as opposed to the French. See, they just use different sentence structures, like in terms of cost. It's a good way to write a sentence. Okay, you'll get good marks for this. People in the UK spent about £450,000 on this as opposed to the French. As opposed to the French, it's a transitional phrase. So if you use phrases like this, you'll get good marks. And remember, this is a sample answer of band 9 score. The student who wrote this got a score of band 9 out of 9 in the writing task 1, which is why this is a good sample answer you might follow. You should follow. Okay, so then they say similarly, the British expenditure was higher on books than the French. Okay, then they talked about books. From cars, it went to books. So basically, they're talking about the highest expenditure items and how much higher. They also mentioned that British expenditure was around 4 lakh, while the French expenditure was 3 lakh. Yeah, so that's what we can see from the graph. Of course, you cannot make anything up. You cannot mention your own opinion in any of this task, in any writing task 1. Never mention your opinion. You will lose mark for mentioning your opinion or any kind of conclusion or any kind of made up facts. Everything has to be taken from this chart only. Everything has to be taken from this chart only. Do not add anything on your own. Okay, in the UK, expenditure on cameras just over 3,50,000 was over double that of France, which was only 1,50,000. See, they use phrases like just over double, was over double that of France. You can use structures like that. Okay, use structures like that, you'll get good points. On the other hand, the amount of money paid out on the remaining, on the other hand, is another good phrase to use that you might want to use in your writing task 1. As well as in writing task 2, it's very, very popular. The amount of money paid out on the remaining goods was higher in France. Um, okay, so the next para, they just summed up for France. About 3,50,000 was spent by the French on computer, which was slightly more than the British, who spent exactly 3,50,000. Neither of the countries spent much on perfume. Then they mentioned similarity and how they were similar. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty simple. That's the end of the writing task 1, and it's pretty simple. So because it's a recorded lecture, let me know if you found anything confusing or if you have any question. I'll try to solve your problems as much as possible. And yeah, this is a demo study routine that you can see. Similarly, you can practice writing, you can practice listening, speaking, and of course, prepare for your grammar from week 1. Review all the tenses, the conjunctions, linking words or connectives, different kind of sentence structures, some complex sentences, some complex vocabulary. Download a list of IELTS vocabulary as well as IELTS grammar so that you are well aware of every single skills that are required to pass your IELTS test. And don't forget to read and watch plenty of BBC News, TED Talks, movies, IELTS videos for your preparation. And just to complete them, make a routine and stick to the routine every single day. Hopefully, you will pass your IELTS exam. Because remember, if millions of students can pass it, you can pass it too. So I'll give you a green signal for practicing every single day. With that, today's trial class is over. Wish you good luck and let me know how we can help you. Thank you so much.